fans.
The Agents of Beastgrave.
And we're back with the next video in our series of how to play Warhammer Underworlds. And we left you very excitedly at the end of the last game, all set up and ready to play. You're about to start your very first game of Warhammer Underworlds. What do, Pete?
Freeze up in panic.
No!
You've rolled your dice, you've placed your models, you've got your boards, you've got your cards in hand, and you know what you're going to do to win this glory now. You've got this in the bag. So the game is broken down into 3 what are called rounds, and each round has a action phase and an end phase within them.
Yes, and each action phase is broken down further into 4 activations each. So it'll be a total of 8 activations. And they are monitored with counters, which we'll come on to in a moment.
So once you've rolled your dice, you've determined who goes first. You get into your first round, into your first action phase, and you take your first activation. Now, in your activation, you can do multiple different things, and we're going to cover those in a later video. But you can do things like move a model, attack with a model,
charge with a model,
go on guard with a model. You can also get rid of cards and pick new ones. Now, it's important that for power cards, you can just draw a power card, and your hand can get from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 cards. But if you're going to pick an objective, you have to get rid of one before you draw one.
And you may sometimes want to do this if you literally can't score any of your objectives. Then that's a really bad situation to be in, and you might decide to do it. It's a tough decision though if you're going to do that. You really want to be maximising your activations for moving, gaining position, and killing your opponent at the end of the day.
Yep. So what will happen is you will take it in turns to each make an activation. I would go, and then Robin would go, and we would repeat that 4 times.
Yeah, that is monitored by the counters I was talking about earlier. You get 4 activation tokens each, and each time they're double-sided, one coloured and one kind of greyed out, and you turn one over to just denote that when you've had your activation.
Now, it's worth mentioning as well at this point that after you've taken your activation, you have what's called a power step.
Power step!
And what that is, a chance for either of you or your opponent to play ploys, gambits, cast spells, put upgrades on fighters, that kind of thing.
Yes, some ploys can be played during activations, and they're called reactions, which we'll come on to later. But most of the time, you're playing them during the power step, which is at the end of each player's activation. So when you finish your activation, let's say you've moved a fighter 3 hexes up the board.
Well done.
Okay, you're sitting there. What am I going to do now? Well, it's your turn to decide whether you want to play any power cards. You look at your, probably got 5, it's the first turn, you should have 5. You look at those, are there any you want to play? Maybe you've got one that enables you to make a cheeky attack action. There aren't very many of those around, but maybe you're lucky and you play it and you can immediately make an attack action. But maybe you haven't. Maybe it's just one to put him on guard. Some of them just put them on guard. So you put him on guard and he gets a guard token, which again we'll cover in a separate video. Either way, whatever you've decided to do, after you've done it, or even if you haven't done anything, your opponent gets the chance to play their own card.
Yep.
If he plays a card, maybe he's got one that enables him to put somebody on guard. He does that, then it's my turn. And if I want to play another one, then I can do that, and then it would be Pete's turn. But if I didn't want to play one, I would pass. Yep. But Pete doesn't have to pass if he doesn't want to. He can keep playing. He can cast a spell, or he can do whatever he likes. If he's got the cast for it. So if he doesn't pass, it will then come back to me, and I might think, oh, actually now Pete's in a different position. He's done something which has changed the game state. I've now got a card I want to play. I'm allowed to do that, or I may pass if I still got nothing to do. So I would pass, which is generally what happens. I would pass. Pete would then perhaps have nothing to do. He would pass, and once we both pass consecutively, that's it. Nobody else plays any power cards, and you move to the next player's activation. It's worth mentioning that. And I did cover it, but it's worth reiterating. If you've passed once, but your opponent's still playing, you can come back into the phase. Yep. You don't have to. It's not like once you've passed, that's it. You're done. Yep. You can come in as long as Pete doesn't pass twice. What you can't do is pass, Pete pass, and then we say, oh, actually, I am going to do this then. If you're not, because sometimes you'll wait and see whether your opponent's going to do something before you do something. You're not allowed to cheekily see whether they're going to do it, and then say, well, actually, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. So that is a activation and a power step. You'll then repeat that 8 times, pretty much 4 times each. And once you've done that, you get to the end phase.
End phase, yes, the end phase. This is where you can score those crucial end phase glory cards. Let's say you've got supremacy. You've managed to stand on 3 objectives during your turn. You can score supremacy and get 3 glory, which is fantastic. So you can choose. You You score whatever card you can. At this point, you should always have 3 objective cards in your hand. If you did score any surge cards during the action phase, you should have always redrawn. So at the beginning of the end phase, you should always have 3 objectives in your hand. Whoever went first scores their objectives first.
Yes, whoever took the first activation
Yep.
has to go through their cards first. Now, there's a very specific order you have to do these in.
Yes.
You start with your objectives, and you first score any objectives that you've scored. So you would take them out of your hand, put them in your discard pile, and you would collect the glory for those. Yeah. Once you've scored any objectives and put those in your discard pile, you then have to decide if any of the other objectives you still have in your hand you want to get rid of. So you might have some cards that you can no longer score, or cards that you just don't think you're going to be able to score.
Yeah, if you've got one that says you need to kill 3 fighters in the next turn, and your opponent's only got 2 left, you're not going to score that, so throw it away. You're already winning, probably.
Yeah, so just enjoy yourself.
So you've scored what objectives you can score. You've discarded any you don't want, and you don't draw new ones yet, because then you have to turn your attention to your remaining power cards. Now you may not have 5 left at this point, because if you do use them up during the turn, you don't draw new ones.
No.
So you may only have 2 left. You may, if you haven't had a very good round, still have 5 left.
Yep.
But you have to decide what you want to do with them. The first point to mention, I think, is that you cannot play ploys at this time.
No.
So any ploys you've got are of no use.
You might want to keep hold of them for the next round, but you can't use them right now.
No, but you can use your upgrades. How do you do that, Pete?
Well, what you want to do is you take your upgrade and you put it on a fighter, and you have to spend one of your glory. Now, you don't get rid of it at this point, you just turn it over.
Yes, glory is 2-sided. There's a gold side and a grey side, and when you place an upgrade, you turn the counter over to signify that it has been spent, but it still counts towards your victory at the end. So it doesn't matter. At the end of the game, there is no differentiation between spent and unspent glory. So you try and spend as much of it as you possibly can, because that means you're making your fighters better.
So once you put all the upgrades on the fighters that you want, you can then decide if any of the others you want to get rid of and put into your discard pile.
Yes, you might want to discard one. Perhaps some upgrades are specific to certain fighters. If that fighter was killed in the last round, there's no point hanging on to it, because you're never going to be able to use it. No.
Once you've discarded or used all your upgrades, you then have to draw back up. You can draw up to 3 cards back into your hand again. So if you already have 1, you can draw another 2. If you've got 3 in your hand still, you can't draw any.
No. And power cards you draw, so you've got 5 in your hand. So at the start of round 2, you'll be back to having 3 objectives and 5 power cards in your hand and waiting to go. So if for some reason you didn't use any power cards, you can't draw any new ones, and you probably want to be thinking about your life choices at this point.
It's also worth mentioning at this point, if you have more than 5 power cards, you might have been drawing some in some of your activations. You have 6 or 7 or 8. You don't have to get rid of any, but that does mean you can't pick up any new ones.
And again, you need to be considering your life choices.
Yeah.
Or at least your card choices.
So then you're on to round 2, and that starts with another roll-off with 4 dice, looking for crits or singles or doubles as always. Whoever wins gets to pick who goes first, and then you go through your activations again, each taking a turn to activate and a power step until you get to 4 each.
It's exactly the same as round 1, round 2.
You get another end phase there where you score, get rid of objectives, get rid of ploys, play upgrades, and then draw all your cards up again. You might find that you've run out of cards in some situations. You just don't draw cards in that situation, but that's not a problem.
No. If you run out of cards, then if it's your objectives, then things are going well.
Exactly. Round 3 starts in exactly the same way as round 1 and 2. You have a roll-off. Whoever wins that gets to decide who goes first, and then you go through your activations, alternating with power steps, playing cards, making actions, and all that good stuff until you get to the end of that round.
Yeah, it's probably worth mentioning this, but a little tactical point of view. You do need to think about when you're going first or second, because there are definite reasons for doing it. In the third end phase, you might want to be last. You might want to be the person who gets to make the very last move. It's harder to stop your opponent doing what you're doing if you've got no activations after them. But there might be reasons to go first. You might want to smash the nearly dead fighter of your opponent in the face and kill him before he gets a chance to do anything. Yeah. And that's one of the tactical nuances and beauty of the game.
That's one of the really minutiae details where you start to realise that each action, you've got to start thinking like in chess, where you've got to think multiple
every decision has a consequence.
Definitely.
And sometimes they're good, and sometimes they ain't.
And then you get onto the final end phase, which is like all the other end phases. The only difference here is you don't play any upgrades.
No, there's no point, because your fighters will be no longer taking any part in the game. It's over, and you will be totaling up the glory points. So yes, you score objectives in exactly the same way. You don't draw new ones. Yep. So if there's any left in the deck that you didn't get to, that's it. They're gone. You can't draw up and say, "Oh, actually, I did score this one too." There's none of that.
Nope.
It's game over, man. You've literally just got to total up your glory and compare it with your opponents.
Yep. And whoever has the most glory wins.
Winner!
But
it
maybe
says in the book here, victory.
Victory.
So only one of you can victorate.
victorize.
Because
Well, there can be only one.
there can be only one, exactly. You score up the glory. Whoever has the most is the winner.
Yep.
What happens if it's a tie?
Well, if it's a tie, there are multiple tiebreaker features that you have to look into.
Is it bare knuckle fighting at dawn?
No. Basically, if you have the same number of glory each, you then see if either side has been completely wiped out.
And if neither side has been wiped out, then you have to look at the position of the fighters.
Yes, you have to see who is standing on the most objective tiles. Remember those 1 to 5 tiles that you placed way back when? Well, they suddenly matter a lot more. Whoever's standing on the most wins the game.
Yep, so if you've basically got one fighter left each after a valiant battle, but one guy is stuck in the corner on his own and somebody else is sitting proudly on objective 5, then they win the game. If, however, neither of you are sitting on an objective, then the game is a tie.
Yeah. Or if in some random way, somehow, both sides have been completely wiped out, then it's a tie then.
It can happen. It's not easy, but it can happen.
Yes. And if you're in a situation at the end of that where one of you has won because one side's been wiped out or one person's standing on more objectives, but you had the same number of glory, then you're both moral victors in this situation.
Definitely, you're both winners. Although I do believe in certain tournament situations, if that does happen, then you might actually have to roll off like you did with your crits and your doubles and your singles, which is a bit of a rubbish way to settle a Titanic battle. But I guess it's the penalty shootout of Warhammer Underworlds.
It is. So there you go. That's how you play a game in a very broad strokes format. In the next video, we're going to start covering some of the more specific things that you can do, like moving, fighting.
Yeah, we're going to break it all down for you so you can see exactly how to do it. We do hope you found this useful. Do carry on following the videos in the series and do let us know if there's anything you want to know about how to play, anything about the game play that you don't quite follow, then do ask in the comments and we'll do our best to answer it.
Until next time.